Today we're going to discuss the difference between direct drives and belt-driven drives and which one might be better for you and your workshop. So stick around and see what we're going to have to say about that. If today is your first time visiting with us, we want to extend you a very warm welcome and invite you to review any of our almost 400 videos, as we are very confident you're going to find something both enjoyable and useful for your consumption. If you have been here before and you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Do subscribe and also hit the notification button so you will know every time that we put a new video out or we publish a new video, which is usually midweek and the weekends. If today is your birthday, we want to wish you a very happy birthday. So what is a direct drive and what is an indirect drive device? Most machines that you're going to use on your shop will have some form of an electric motor, like you see here, right? This is the motor for this device. In a direct drive machine, the motor is directly connected to the business end of the machine. For example, this is a direct drive machine. The motor is directly connected to the chuck and transfers the power of the motor directly to the chuck. This machine, however, it is a belt-driven machine. And as you can see, the motor actually turns this spindle, and then this belt turns this spindle, which in turn turns the chuck. So virtually every belt-driven machine, and there are many, a lot of lathes have belts, a lot of bandsaws have belts, clearly a lot of I just forgot what this is called. Drill presses have belts, and there is always an argument. One of the advantages of a belt-driven system, especially an older one, our belt is showing signs of wear there, Elvira. Can you see it? No?
Hold on, it's stinking. Oh, there we go.
So this belt shows signs of wear. One of the things you have to watch when you're looking at belt-driven systems is the wear, and then you will have to buy a replacement belt before it breaks. A breaking belt, first of all, will startle you, will make a lot of sound, and that's why you don't ever want to operate a machine like this open, right? Because if this breaks, it will be a projectile and can do substantial damage to something around you or even you. So let's go and look now at the direct drive machine. As you can see, our bandsaw is a direct drive, and what it means is that while a lot of bandsaws have belts, ours does not. It goes directly from the motor to the I forget, this is the big one, right, on the top. There is a big wheel on the top and a small in the bottom, or other way around. Right. Stop it. Different machines will have different ways to unhook or open. Stop for a moment. So as you can see, our motor is here, but there is no belt in here, and I don't know if we can see this. Can you see the end of the motor there? And it directly affects this. So I guess this is the smallest of the two.
Yeah.
It connects directly to our wheel here and directly drives our bandsaw blade. And what is the advantage of this? You cannot have slippage, right? I mean, you can stall the motor, but on a belt-driven system, you can actually have the belts themselves slipping. Very similar to what happened to your car, actually, when you hear that sound that your drive belts are slipping and makes that annoying sound. In a machine, and I think you saw that in our video, on our last video, sometimes the belt will slip, so the chuck or whatever driving mechanism you have will actually stop and will stall. It is much harder to stall the motor itself than it is for a belt to slip. And maybe our belt's slipping because they're worn. I haven't thought of that, but you know, we didn't have this problem before, or lately we started having it. And now I notice that the belt is worn, so maybe worth changing the belt and see if that will fix it. So, is there any disadvantage on a direct driven motor? I don't think so, other than if your motor is very weak, it would be very likely to stall, right? Like we have 3 or 4 power drills, and I think our most powerful is 5 amps, and the least powerful is something like 2.5 amps. Well, I can stop the 2.5 amp drill by holding it. I cannot stop the 5 amp drill by holding it. So the motor can stall itself, but it takes much more to stall. In fact, I don't think the only time we stalled this is when we had problems with this, didn't it? That it was.
Yeah, the tire was.
And it was really kind of getting between the wheel and the housing, and it was stalling the motor because it was acting as a brake.
Yeah. And of course everything was sliding off.
So ultimately, I think, what do you think? I think ultimately it's a matter of preference. If you like a direct drive or a belt driven. On a belt driven, you have one more component that could break, the belt itself. So if you look at from that and maintenance, of course, a belt driven system will require a little more maintenance than a direct drive system. Other than that, from experience I can tell you we've had much less difficulty with this machine. And I'm using this as an example because bandsaws are very frequently belt driven. Ours happen to be a direct drive, but belt driven is also very common. And I can tell you we had very minimal problems with this, and only when a serious malfunction happened. And it wasn't the motor actually, it was something else, right? I don't think we've ever stalled the motors on this thing in 3 years of using it daily almost. Where, as you probably, those of you that have been in our channel for a long time know, we've had problems with our drill press, stalling it fairly easy. Like on the last project, we're using very soft wood. I mean, sometimes I understand it in hardwood, but very soft wood. I was making a joke off camera that I can probably score it with my fingernail, right? It is an easy wood to cut, and yet we had tremendous difficulty. And if you notice, when we switched to a handheld drill, we didn't have a problem. We were able to complete the project. So in that case, I would say the belt, now realizing the belt is wearing down, it was a problem. So how do you decide? Ultimately, it's a personal opinion. My opinion is that direct drive systems have a little more power for the same size motor. However, in newer machines, you can have them as multiple speed using a rheostat, using a little button, right? But in old machines like my bandsaw, it is a one-speed machine, where this kind of arrangement, are you close enough? Or even go here. You can actually change the speed of the spindle by moving the belt up and down, right? So this is an advantage, especially if you have if you're buying used machines a lot of the variable speed machines will actually be belt driven, because that was the easiest way to change speeds, you know, and a lot of your entry level tools, I've been looking at lathes, a lot of the inexpensive lathes have belts instead of direct drive, because motors that have the ability to change RPMs tend to be more expensive and they require more electronics, etc. Today you can find both though. You can find machines that they are direct drive or belt driven that allow you to change the speed of the machine. On a machine like this and on a lathe, you want the ability to change speeds. And why do you think that is, Elpida?
Irregularities in the wood and or the hardness of the wood.
Yeah, I mean the first one will be for the lathe, right? I mean, if you have a hunk of wood that it is very, very irregular and you put it at high speed, it's going to vibrate your house off. So you want to start at the low speed and knock off the big chunks out first, right? What we have found on this, the hardness of the wood makes a big difference. Before it starts slipping, and I'm really thinking it's slipping because of this now that I look at it, you know? Before it starts slipping, we knew that if we were using hardwood, weirdly, we needed to use slower speed, and softwood higher speed, and it will work fine, right? So there is an advantage. If the question is, should you buy a variable speed machine or a single speed machine, I think that's an easy question. A variable speed machine is more versatile, right? The question, should you buy a belt driven or a direct drive, I really don't know. I prefer direct drives. What do you prefer? Do you have a preference?
Based on our experience in the shop and ease of usage, yeah, the direct drive bandsaw is much easier to use. I don't know if I could make a machine-to-machine comparison, but based on those two machines, then definitely direct drive is better.
Because we don't have two machines that one is one way and the other is another way, right?
So I don't think it's necessarily a fair comparison for me to make, but based on what I do have experience with, it's the direct drive for sure.
Now, another mini advantage that the belt-driven machines might have is that they can save the motor. Instead of continuing and burning the motor, and as you know, we burn the table saw that way,
Yeah.
because the motor, there is nothing between the motor and whatever you're driving, a blade or a chuck or whatever. We burned one, it was very inexpensive, it was a Ryobi, but it can serve us well for years, and then one day I burned it. Totally my fault, not the sauce, because actually we start seeing smoke and we didn't stop, which would have been the smart thing to do, right?
Somebody might have mentioned that.
Yes, someone did. But in any case, my next saw, which is this one, it's also direct drive, but there are table saws that they are actually belt driven, and maybe that can save your machine, because the belt will slip before you stall the saw. Unless, and I guess another, I don't know if it's negative or positive, if this is not correctly set, and we found that out too, the tension has to be very precisely dialed in. If it is too loose, the belt will be rotating without the chuck rotating. If it is too tight, nothing moves, because then in essence you've created a break.
Right.
So they take a little more finessing to work, where on the bandsaw we just go turn it on and we're ready, right? We don't have to worry about anything else.
As long as your tires are good, yeah.
Yes, you know, how many people don't have face our problems? We tend to have weird problems with our machinery, that's all I'm saying.
But this was an old machine that you got for a pretty decent price at a yard sale. It's a Craftsman. It served us very well. It's just those tires needed to be replaced.
Right. And the only thing I would change on that machine actually is I would like it to be a variable speed. Because if I wanted to cut metal, it moves too high. You need to be at a lower speed to cut metal. But other than that, I mean, you know, I'm very, very pleased with the machine.
Yeah, it's been a great find.
And I like older machines for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, I think the craftsmanship was better. They built things to last versus our society today, which is more like a use it and toss it.
Right, yeah. Well, I guess another example of a direct driven machine will be this fan. There are no belts. And both the rotation of the blade and the rotation of the fan are directly driven, right? There is a small metal shaft that causes that rotation that is off-centered. So it rotates, you cannot see it. I mean, you have to take the housing off. And of course the fan itself that causes the fan to move is directly attached to the motor. So what is our conclusion? They both have advantages and disadvantages. I prefer the direct drive. It looks like Elpida prefers the direct drive, right?
Yeah.
It is totally up to you. And again, to reiterate, the belts need to be adjusted. They will fail eventually. You will have to replace them. But you're less likely to burn your motor because the belt will slip before you actually stop and burn your motor. So I guess there are advantages and disadvantages, and maybe it boils down to what you do. For what we do, for building things, right, for being a maker, it looks like a direct drive machine is a better choice. But maybe if you're doing other things that require less power, a belt driven might be easier for you because it gives you the flexibility to change speeds on the fly without tools, right? And I guess I didn't mention that. You need no tools to change this.
Well, yes and no. Because once you change the belt speed, you have to change the tension on the motor, and we have found that we can't just do that with our hands. We have to have a pry bar to hold it out to get it to the right tension.
Well, you don't have to do it every time, though.
But sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. And I see this belt is everywhere. I don't know, is that you think like the metal that shows? I have no idea what it is. I know I'm just moved to... You see how that looks? Like if that was a car belt, I would think that was the metal. I don't know what this is here.
I'm not sure.
But you can see that this is all worn. Yeah.
But at a minimum, for anybody who didn't know the difference between a drive and a direct drive, we demonstrated that today.
So I hope you found this video useful and entertaining. And if you did, again, I'm going to ask you for a like. If you didn't, feel free to comment below. Feel free to give us a dislike. I always encourage and embrace criticism that is constructive, you know. Not things like, hey, that was stupid, but tell me if you think we said or did something wrong. I would like to hear from you. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, we will appreciate a thumbs up. If you didn't, the other button works if you hit it twice. Share, like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know what you want to see in future videos. And we appreciate your support and the growing of our community. From the Garage Wizard, Elpida, I'm going to do that again. From the Garage Wizard and Elpida, I want to wish you a great week. Farewell.